Gonna attempt to answer the age-old question of what absorbs light better, you know? Duvetyne cloth right here. And filmmaking is the kind of thing where everybody goes, well, you gotta be fancy, you gotta be like the pros, you gotta get the Duvetyne going, but Duvetyne is just cotton. That's all it is. It's cotton with some nap on it, and then they spray this fire retardant thing on it. So I got this polyester cloth, real cheap on Amazon. It's like $20 for 10 by 12 feet. Duvetyne, this velvet 4x4 I made a while back. Then I got this other velvet thing I got also, I got it from Amazon. And then I got some wool felt, says it was wool on Amazon. Who knows if it actually is wool. And even on my little cotton black sweater here. Now, how am I gonna do this? Well, I got my newer 300 watt LED. It's not the brightest light in the world, but it's pretty bright. And then I got a snoot on it. And then I'm just gonna put, you know, very close up to the material there so there's no spill. And we'll measure it with my camera, 12,800 ISO. And we'll see if there's any real difference between any of these materials. My guess is that there's gonna be like very little practical difference and that we all shouldn't waste our lives wondering about such stupid bullshit. But hey, you know, something I thought about at one point, or have been thinking about. So let's do the test. Let's see what happens. Okay, I'm gonna do some controls first. So here's a beige trench coat. Here's a little white diffuser thing I made. Here's the bead board. Now this is what the black velvet looks like. Okay, here's the Duvetyne. And I'm just draping the cloth over the 4x4 because I don't see how it would make any kind of difference, at least for when it comes to reflectivity. Cheap polyester cloth off Amazon. This is the black velvet off of Amazon. Now, when I eyeballed this test before, this looked like the winner, just using my eyeballs, which makes a lot of sense because it's like the nappiest and the darkest. Okay, here's the felt, AKA wool, which is pretty impractical. You're probably not gonna use that for negative fill or blocking, but if you want to spend a few $100s on some wool curtains, I actually saw somebody online talking about how the spray on Duvetyne, the fire retardant, is like bad for you and it's bad for the environment, which I don't know if that's true or not, but probably. Okay, here's my old trusty black cotton sweater just for fun. Bonus material, some blackout curtains I got at Walmart a long time ago. They're a little shiny, so I don't think they're gonna do that well. So we've reached the part of the video you probably just skipped to, and that's okay, I do it too, but what can we really say here? You know, to me, it kind of looks like they're all very similar except for maybe the two velvet materials. And as far as the Duvetyne goes, it's absorbing more light than the Walmart curtains, sure, but is it doing much better than the felt or the polyester drop cloth or the cotton sweater? You know, to me, that's a bit harder to say. And I'll bring the exposure up a bit here, but kind of the whole reason I did this test was to show that when it comes to filmmaking stuff, you know, gear isn't magic. But this is the internet, so someone out there is gonna say, well, you didn't use real Duvetyne. Real Duvetyne is much, much better, to which I'll reply right now, where do you get real Duvetyne? Because there's Duvetyne on B&H, and one of the comments is some guy saying that it's not real Duvetyne, and I imagine I can buy some Duvetyne somewhere that might have a little bit more nap to it, might be dyed a little darker and therefore maybe absorb light a little better, but fabrics aren't really like a standardized thing, you know? Even between the two velvet samples here, there's quite a bit of difference. And I wouldn't even say that those are necessarily better in materials either. especially the velvet cloth from Amazon, because it's just really thin, and velvet's so nappy it's going to attract like more dirt and debris even more than Duvetyne already does. And so these kind of things are always something of a trade-off. And I think that's why Duvetyne got so popular. But the takeaway here for me today is probably that if you need negative fill, you know, something to absorb light, pretty much any black fabric is going to suck up most of that light. And the differences between the different fabrics are kind of negligible. Real barrel laughs on that one. Let's measure the light transmission through the fabric. My guess is that the Duvetyne and the velvet are going to do the best because they're a little bit heavier. Going to leave the snoot on about 6 to 8 inches from the back. The light's a hell of a lot brighter without the snoot, but we're not measuring brightness, we're measuring light transmission. So in this test, it looks like the velvet's reflecting more light, but that's because the back isn't a velvet napped surface. It's more like a rough canvas texture. And if you see differences in this test like that, this is why. Most of these materials aren't the same on the front as they are on the back. And I hate wasting time explaining this, but again, this is the internet and people are just gonna comment and say stupid things. Here's the Duvetyne. You can buy commando cloth, which is just a heavier weight of cotton. You know, it's like 16 ounces instead of 8 or 9 or whatever. Here's the polyester. Here's a cheap black felt again. Blackout curtain from Walmart. So the felt has this layer of like sticky plastic because it's like meant to go in drawers and shit. I don't know if that makes a difference, but just for fun, black cotton sweater. So the velvet, the Duvetyne, and the felt are letting less light through. If you're really wanting to block light, I guess you'd get commando cloth, or what I do is I go down to your local fabric store, feel all the black fabrics, and see what feels the heaviest for least amount of money. So whatever that test was worth, I got a door back there, so I'm gonna do a practical test with the Duvetyne and the polyester drop cloth and whatever else can block the whole door to see if there's any practical difference if you actually need to block actual light coming in. Okay, so this is the Duvetyne, and there's light coming in through the crack in the door there, but you should be able to get a pretty good sense of what all these are doing, I think. Okay, here's the polyester drop cloth. Oh no, is there a difference? Blackout curtain from Walmart. Maybe just a little too small for this application. Cheap velvet off Amazon. Felt that goes in a drawer. Ain't doing shit. Here's the black velvet. Not quite big enough to cover the door. So it's really not so much the material as it is the weight or thickness. You can buy thin cotton or heavy cotton, thin polyester or heavy polyester. But if you need to block light from coming in, once you get to like a medium weight fabric, unless you need the opening itself to be opaque, I think pretty much anything's gonna darken up a room as long as you have enough of it to cover. And my general thoughts with all this stuff is that it doesn't really matter. Cinematographers and film people spend so much time obsessing over these minor differences that maybe accumulate to 3 or 5%. And that's their job, but does it ever really matter in the grand scheme of things? And I would say not really. I know there are a lot of people, a lot of filmmakers out there who are kind of the opposite. They just like working with natural light, kind of not modifying anything ever. Sometimes that looks good too, if you schedule things right. And then you have Hollywood people setting up 12 by 12 frames with like 7 grips. And my whole thing is like, maybe there's a middle ground, you know? Maybe you can do some stuff without getting too crazy with it, too expensive. And that's kind of where my philosophy with filmmaking is right now. Okay, did those tests. Hopefully we got something out of it. I don't know. But now I want to talk a little bit about negative fill, what it actually is, what it's actually doing, because I think a lot of people kind of think about it wrong. I know I was thinking about it wrong for a long time. Maybe I'm still thinking about it wrong. But anyway, you got like a 4x4 floppy like this, right? And you put it real close and you go outside, and outside, we're talking about maybe open shade, you know, but you basically have the sun and you have the sky, and the sky's like a giant ambient fill light that goes everywhere. It fills in light everywhere you go, and you also have light bouncing off the ground. But you put a floppy like in somebody's face real close like this, it's going to create contrast, because now you're blocking and absorbing a little bit of that ambient light from the sky. So you go inside, right? Same kind of a setup, a little bit different, but you got your basic Rembrandt lighting, you know, your 3-point lighting, 3/4 to the side there, and you look at the shadows, and they're not as contrasty as you would like them to be, because what's happening is you got your key light, you got a tungsten light, and you put some diffusion on it, but now the light looks kind of soft now, but it's spilling everywhere. So it's directionally, it's hitting that opposite wall, and it's bouncing back, and the shadows. When I used to make like maps for Quake 3 or whatever it was when I was a kid, there was this thing called radiosity in computer graphics. Radiosity was just like simulating bounced light, you know, with an algorithm or whatever. Right? Anyway, that's all we're really dealing with when we're talking about negative fill, is the bounce light from your key or ambient light or whatever. So inside, you put the floppy really close to the face, and it's going to accomplish the same thing, because it's blocking that reflected light, absorbing a little bit of ambient light maybe. But now you're really close to the subject. So what can you do? Well, you can kind of just take that floppy, and instead of putting it right by your subject, you use it to kind of like flag and skirt the key light a bit. So now light's not hitting that back wall, so it doesn't have a chance to reflect. You're accomplishing basically the same thing, and you know, controlling spill is kind of just negative fill a little bit in my mind, you know. Negative fill, if you can't control the spill, then you go to that back wall and you put up a bunch of black cloth or whatever, try to absorb the reflection there. But if you can do it at the source, and then you can get all kinds of crazy and kind of skirt the light from both sides or whatever. You can start throwing black stuff on the ground to control whatever light's reflecting off the ground or on the ceiling, how crazy you want to get with it. But it's 2026. We've got LED lights, we've got soft boxes with like grids on them. Can you skirt the light that way? You know, it works okay. Still kind of just bringing the flag and flagging the light off a little bit. Or you could skirt the light if it's coming top down. All these things, but it's all about controlling light, right? Like, you're not just gonna go into like a situation and just put some negative fill next to somebody and hope that it absorbs all the light that you don't want coming into the shadows. It probably will, but like, this is in the frame, right? It's only good for a close-up. So all we're really doing is we're thinking about the lights that we're using, where that light's headed to, how it's reflecting back, and then we're just trying to mitigate that a little bit, you know. That's all negative fill it really is in my mind. And you know, some shots, a wide shot, you're not gonna be able to do it. You wanna move the camera or the actors around, like I like to do, you know, you're not really gonna be able to do much. You almost have to light the space or start thinking about these things in like pre-production. Like, I don't want any white lights where I'm shooting my scene. I want dark walls. Can I get that? Can I paint them? Can I not have light bouncing around everywhere? Maybe I want light bouncing around everywhere. Maybe I want it to look like a heaven in a scene or something, you know? I don't know. So anyway, that's all it is. That's all lighting really is actually starting to think about the lighting, where it's going, where it's coming from, how it's working in your scene.